Welcome to the Chapalang podcast, and I'm your host, Sepeng. We also have film director Jonathan Chu, who will be co-hosting today's episode with me and all future episodes. So our guest today is Huang Junxiang, or JX as we call him. So JX is a film producer whose credits include Tiong Bahru Social Club, Buffalo Boys, Ramen Teh, and most recently, In My Mother's Skin. Welcome to the pod, JX.
Hey, thank you. Very happy to be able to join this and talk and chat. Yes.
Yeah, so first of all, congrats on the success of In My Mother's Skin.
Yeah, I know it's your favorite film, John.
Yeah, it is. I have some opinions on it, but that's another day. But the film opened to glowing reviews and a lot of publications worldwide. So congrats on that. And we actually met JX last week at the premiere of the Singapore
premiere at
thanks.
GV Vivo.
Thanks for coming for that. I think that's the one and only big screen experience of In My Mother's Skin in Singapore. So yeah, thanks for coming.
And we know you love genre films, right? So it's something we'll get to later.
It's an interesting story. I would say that actually me liking horror came a bit later. It was actually mostly, to be fair, through Eric, who was a big fan of it first. And then from there, me coming to like it was really a bit of business first. And then knowing that horror films are more cost effective in terms of the budgets you can do them with for high quality and also the audience that it can reach. So I used to be, I'm a big coward lah. So even when I watched, I think Conjuring, couldn't sleep for weeks on end. And so I would kind of like avoid it just because I was not comfortable with engaging this kind of feeling. But I think it's one of those things where the more you watch it, the more you appreciate the craft, the more you sort of understand yourself and your fears. And I really find that very intriguing, and that really has broadened my perspective on films.
Cool. I think perhaps later we can speak more about your love for genre films.
Okay.
I know you are big fan of comedies.
Yes.
So we probably can get into that a little bit later. Okay, so maybe to kick things off, maybe you can share a single cinematic moment that made you realize you wanted to be in this business.
Single cinematic moment. I think it would definitely have to be my Royal Tenenbaums when I was very young. So this was when I was 15, 16, and I didn't know too much about films. I just watched all the Hollywood films and everything, and I think someone passed me a VCD. And then I put it in, I watched the film, and I was very taken by, because it's so formalist and it's so clear how it's constructed, right? So when you see the way it, for example, when they use the Elliott Smith track Needle in the Hay, even with Nico's, when Gwyneth Paltrow walks off the bus by way of the Green Line bus, I think that was very emotionally powerful to me in two ways. One, visually, and two, just expanding my range of music and how even pop music can be used in film effectively. Because usually in the past, before that, you watch Disney films and it's just like, oh, you hear the soundtrack, like Beauty and the Beast, the official song, or you hear like scores,
Right.
But I think to see it infused with pop culture and to see it done in that way, I think was really expanded my vocabulary of what cinema could be. Yeah.
How old were you then?
I was 16. Yeah. But to be fair, before this, I was really into theatre. So I was in my school's drama club since I was 12, 13. So I was a big fan of theatre. I used to love going for drama rehearsals, things like that. And I think for me, the medium of film just felt very different and very exciting as well. So that was when I started to watch more films. Yeah.
And then when did you start looking for a job in the industry?
I think it was after I graduated. I was kind of not doing too much. I was just thinking about my future, mulling what to do. So I used to just play mahjong with some kakis every day actually. And then I remember I really wanted to do film. So one of my friends he said, "Oh, we have a camera. Why don't we shoot something? There's a competition coming next week." And so I said, oh, okay, but we only have 1 weekend to shoot. That's only 3 days, and we don't know what to do. So it's okay, just write a script. So we wrote a script for this competition, and this competition was called the Very Short International Film Competition. So it's a 3-minute short film, and so we wrote a 3-minute short film just to win the award, like really specifically to win the award, because the award is $5,000, and then from there you can make more films. You see, so. Yeah, so then after that, we made the short film, we submitted it, we won the award, and the judges happened to be people like Lilin, Anthony, and Eric. So at the award ceremony, they said, oh, we really like the film, and from there, it got to be a bit thick-skinned, so I just said, hey, can I get internship, and then they said, okay, we hook you up. I didn't get a reply for 1 week, and I just emailed until I got my internship.
For the audiences who don't know, right, who is this Eric you're referring to?
Oh, this Eric would be Eric Koo. I think, he's one of the founding fathers of Singaporean cinema. So to have him like the film that me and my friend did, Kang Wei, it was tremendous. I think it was great validation, because before that, I wouldn't even be able to consider how I would do it. And I think I was very hungry to find a way to do it as well.
This was after you finished your law degree, right?
Yes, this was after I finished my law degree, so it's much to the disappointment of my parents, yes.
So you joined Eric's company, Zhao Wei Films?
Yes, so I was interning there. First I was a locations assistant, so first day, I'm full of energy, I thought, I better bring in some of my legal things here, and the only legal thing I could offer was being garang lah. So I remember on the first day, I think I called like 100 different property agents, because we needed to find like a 5-room flat for the hero, the protagonist's house. And they wanted to be ground floor, so it's easier for lighting. So I remember calling 100 different property agents. And I think on the second day, I was still doing the same thing, trying to find options for places. And, I was talking to the other interns, and I was a bit older than other interns because I was 24 at the time. And most of the other interns were like 18, right? So, when they said cannot, I was a little bit bossy lah. I said like, no, can just find this way or do this way. And when I was kind of like being a bit bossy, I think Eric came in and he saw me, and then he said to Gary, who is the producer, he's a really prominent producer who produced things like Royston's films like 15, 881, and he told Gary, make this guy the first assistant director of the film. So Trial by Fire, being a first AD on a feature film as my first job, very painful few months, but I think really it's the barriers of entry for the film industry are actually fairly low, right? You don't actually need to study per se, right? If you want to make a career out of it. I think really a curiosity and an interest and a passion is a big thing, and I think that Trial by Fire just really cemented my decision that I really wanted to do this.
What film were you like first AD on?
Is this film by Gilbert Chan called Ghost Child.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nice.
what is that before 2359 or
After 2359. So 2359 was successful, and then this was actually the next film he did after 2359. Yeah. So with a very young J. Lee Woo and stuff.
So you really come
Naomi
full
Neo
circle.
was in the film actually. Naomi Neo, the influencer, was in the film
okay.
as an extra.
Wow.
One of the swimming team, like I don't know, Mean Girls or I don't know what.
You really come full circle, starting from Ghost Chow, and now you are producing In My Mother's Skin.
Yeah. I guess can't really escape the horror of it all. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think from there you sort of like see and you learn, and I think the most important thing is that there are no actually like small jobs in the film industry. It's really like the desire to learn, and if you look and you learn and you ask things, I think people do appreciate that. So yeah, I'm very grateful to Eric Feng Cheng Zhao Films for giving me the opportunity, because I think that moment really hit me in the first time when Apprentice gone to Cannes by Junfeng, and they said, Jax, why don't you go, you work so hard on the film. And next thing I knew I was there, and I was like, wow, dude, I can't imagine, from just like not even knowing how I'm going to do it to doing it. And to be fair, I also did feel a bit of an imposter syndrome in the way that, like, when I talk to people like John, who really know so much about cinema and have that breadth, and I really respect that, and I talk to other filmmakers, I feel that there's so much for me to learn and to watch as well, and I need to learn and watch more. So I think that's also kind of something that still is a part of me, but it makes me grateful to be doing what I do.
Right. I think you mentioning Ghost Chow is a great segue because we're going to talk about genre cinema.
Okay.
And I saw in the news recently, like you, Epic Media, and Volos Films, you guys are going to work together again on two genre projects, right? One of them is Kenneth's next film, Molder, right, which is a body horror supernatural thriller, according to Variety. And this guy got Carlo,
Cafu, yeah.
Hold My Gaze, which is like a mystery thriller.
Yeah.
So I think maybe a good way to kick off is what is a genre film for you?
I think genre film exists in a very metatextual sense. You can't have a genre film if it only exists alone, right? A genre emerges when you have a series of films that follow that have certain repetitions in patterns, forms, that sort of represent different characters, evoke different feelings in you. So you it's kind of like a brand, right? A genre film is like a brand. You watch a horror film, you get a sense of what you are going to watch, and from genres you have subgenres, right? And that's when the brand becomes a bit more niche, right? So you would have, for example, body horror, as you mentioned. You would have gore. You would have psychological horror, whatever, supernatural. So yeah, I would say genre is really like a style, a tone that captures a certain pattern that evokes a certain feeling that aims to evoke a certain feeling in its audience.
Is this a direction that you are kind of fixed on going, trying to make genre films as frequent as you can?
I don't think it's a fixed pattern. I think for me, in Singapore, when you really think about it, there's only one real filmmaker that attracts a large, sizable audience, right? As much as our other filmmakers are respected internationally, the only filmmaker that really attracts a consistent audience as a brand is really Jack Neo. And of course, we have other other films that come out here and there, and some people go and watch and things like that. But nothing sustained, nothing consistent, at least not yet. So for me, making genre films is a way of having an audience, and not just a domestic audience as well. It is a way of growing an audience, because maybe you know what they always say, right? If you want to be artists in Singapore, go overseas first, make your name, and then come back. And I think for many of our filmmakers, such as Anthony, all their works are great, but if he did not go to Cannes, if he did not win the award, would he be as recognized and as respected before as he is now? And that's a great tragedy, this sense of discovery, right? We don't really have that. So I see working on horror films and genre films as a way to ease the discovery process for audiences with filmmakers. Yeah, but I love doing drama stuff also here and there.
Well, what do you think is something that Singapore needs for our genre filmmaking?
I think we need a greater critical mass. I think, first of all, we need to also be mindful of what genres can work and how it can work as well. And I think it operates on so many levels, right? First is education, where genre filmmaking cannot be seen as second fiddle to artistic filmmaking. Yep. That's a major sacred cow to slaughter, right? Same with festivals and labs, and how they only tend to take artistic filmmakers as well. Perceived, because it's not true. That's actually not true. And then the next other thing is, of course, for above the line filmmakers like producers and directors to recognize it and to change their mode of thinking to enable a stronger room of genre filmmaking by really understanding what is at the heart of genre filmmaking. So it's like, if I'm doing a comedy, for example, if I'm doing a horror film, right? Do I really need to shoot on Ari with Cook S5 lens? No, it's like you're not focusing on the important things, and you're not spending the money on the right things, right? And I think these things can be hindrances. It's almost like you use it as a crutch to hide something. So I think it's a lot of different things. But I do believe that there are a lot of very dynamic, very interesting producers, directors out there, and I think I believe that the time is coming soon where our Singaporean audiences would discover people and be more curious to discover people. Last one is also our local broadcasters need to be more open-minded in terms of how they champion talent, because when you follow a trend, you will always be seen as a trend follower, and I think that boils down to working in a corporate environment that is too risk averse.
So, what is at the heart of a good genre film? What makes good genre cinema?
People enjoy can already lah. I think that's really it.
Actually, that's really quite true. I think, enjoyment from audience, it's actually a very underrated thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and enjoyment can be so many different things. Even if you leave a film feeling very uncomfortable, right? The enjoyment maybe come from intellectual stimulation in terms of how you feel and why you feel it as well. For example, obviously different films operate on different levels lah. So, but I think all of it is valid lah. So I think maybe just interpret enjoyment in a bit broader, in a bit of a broader sense. Yeah.
Because you think about like the definition of cinema, right? And we talk about something like God of Cookery by Stephen Chow.
Oh, I love that film.
Or like any films in Hong Kong's heyday, right?
Yeah.
And if you were to cut them into a highlight reel, right? Those images have power to them, right?
Yeah.
Especially now looking back 20 plus years later.
Yeah.
Because the image of film has an elasticity. And you look at this super heightened emotions, right, that these actors give, whether is it like the bride with white hair, Once Upon a Time in China, or like the Stephen Chow films, right? They are forever embedded in cinema. So I think people need to appreciate the power of genre in that sense.
I think so much of storytelling is also myth making. Like, when we look at Greek myths, they still stay with us today. There's Shakespearean stories that archetypes are very true, and you can draw parallels to just how people act, right? And I think we are still trying to define ourselves and to find a way to capture that identity that we face as to be very specific to Singaporeans lah, Yeah, and that's why I think the films that do well in Singapore capture some of those challenges. There's these inner tensions between us. Like I'm Not Stupid, even like 12 Stories. I think all of them do quite well. Even Ilu Ilu, I think has done a really good job with that. Yeah.
So we have to ask, right? What are your favorite genre films?
Favorite genre film? Oh, I feel like you're characterizing me as just a genre filmmaker. Genre films, I really like, for horror, I really like The Descent.
Or the Neil Burger, is it?
No.
Neil Jordan, is it Neil?
Not Neil Jordan. Neil Jordan is the author, I think.
Oh my god, what's the
But his name is Neil, and he's a botak guy.
Neil, yeah, sorry.
But I like that film quite a lot. I think it strikes the right balance. I'm a big fan of all the Park Chan-wook kind of like genre stuff. I think he does a fantastic job with it.
Neil Marshall, The Descent.
Neil Marshall.
Neil
Marshall.
Although after Descent, he has never really done anything.
Yeah, that's true.
He did Hellboy, which was a big flop.
He did Dog Soldiers, right?
He did Dog Soldiers.
Yeah.
So his career was on the ascent at the time. Yeah, but look, I mean, just because you do one film and the rest aren't so good, I think you should really take it as a point of joy and pride. Like how many people actually hit the bullseye. Also,
I think so.
And have this kind of like cultural relevance also. So yeah, maybe don't be too greedy. Other favorite genre films. Action would definitely be one of the Huang Fei-hong films. I would say Once Upon a Time in China 2. It begins with this great sequence with the White Lotus set, and then with the joss sticks and they're rubbing it against the chest, and it just sets such a good backdrop in terms of this colonial China trying to open up and this kind of like conservative forces. And I feel it's still so relevant today. Of course, it has a great fight scene between Yang Donnie Yen and Jet Li as well.
Just a sidetrack question. Speaking of Chui Hak, have you ever seen Blade?
No, Blade is fantastic. It's the update of a philosophical version of One Armed Swordsman. It's a fantastic film. Yeah.
That movie is freaking insanity, man.
Yeah, I do recommend it to people. I do like Chui Hak. I mean, obviously he's gone. I would say that he's a bit less hungry nowadays. But yeah, I think he's even Detective D. The first one I did enjoy it, even though the storytelling a bit sloppy. But you know, Chui Hak always has imagination, and I think so much of our so-called Chinese Asian storytelling is interesting because it's so like fantastical but for people who are so repressed and stuff, and some acting is also very over the top, right? So I find it interesting that relationship why we're so drawn to it.
But actually, why do you think audiences are more inclined towards genre? Like my theory is because I think genre films provide audiences with this opportunity for like catharsis. And if you think about it, right, every genre is typically associated with one very strong emotion. So for horror, it's like fear. For comedy, it's like laughter. And but like melodrama is like what's that? Pathos, right? So, and it's this opportunity to release your feelings, right, while watching the film. That for me, explains why genre is more attractive and hence a more quote-unquote commercial path.
I think because for most people, like what the average cinema going rate is in Singapore is very high. I think it's like close to 2.8 films a year. Most countries are like 1 point something. And if you think about that, somebody only watches one film a year. Most people only watch 1 to no films a year.
Yeah.
And I think that says a lot, right? And if you're going to watch one film a year, why are you going to 2 films a year? What are you going to watch? You're going to watch something where you want to watch it and you want to enjoy it if you're going to pay money to watch it, right? So I think genre films provides like a brand of you know what you're going to get, and you sort of know an existing body to be able to talk around it, to explore it. And then obviously with the more you watch it, then you have more elevated perspectives lah.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think they're watching more movies on Netflix and Disney Plus.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely the case. But even if you look at all the top few films, generally fairly escapist fare lah. Escapist fare. Even things that are quite simple, you can watch in the background. You know, I think that's quite an interesting trend also. But yeah.
Do you have any films you like to watch in the background?
No, I don't like to watch films in the background.
I mean, we are a niche audience lah. We are a niche audience lah.
Yeah, do you have like
Channel 8 dramas.
Channel 8 dramas? Okay.
Reruns.
Right.
Yeah.
Even some of the reality shows, I know people put in like Physical 100 in the background.
Right.
Just some background noise.
So most films you can hear rather than see.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, when for some people, when they're alone at home, right? And this is what I know because I do a bit of TV advertising work also. The litmus test for loudness in terms of an ad is that you can hear it from the kitchen when it's at regular volume, what they are saying and selling. And so that means that there is a kind of data to back it that these agency people and clients would latch onto it to guide their thinking in terms of what is the benchmark and how do they explain it to people in terms of the choices that they make.
What do you think about comedy that is can be universal? Because we talk about like these Will Ferrell comedies.
Yeah, those are not really universal. You either love him or hate him. But I think a great example would be people like Buster Keaton, Stephen Chow.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that. Like very physical type of comedy.
Yeah, but I think you know, a pathos is not limited to only melodrama, right? Their characters got great pathos in them that is so relatable. And you know, every time I think about Stephen Chow films, what I really love about it is that it's seen as such superficial escapist fare by many people who deride him and say, oh, this is very stupid comedy. I mean, it's called nonsense comedy to begin with, right? The translation from Cantonese. But when I really thought about it, I think one day it struck me that what Stephen Chow really does is to kind of project these suburban fantasies of how people can escape their everyday circumstance. And that's what is escapism, right? It's literally that, right? Like this in God of Cookery, the arrogant guy has to learn his lesson. That's a fantasy, right? That's a fantasy that in our lives we want these people who are rich assholes or whatever to learn their lesson, right? And to relate. Then we can come to terms with their existence in the same society as ours. You know, that one day they may have their comeuppance. And same thing with his underdog characters, that they may overcome and they can achieve beyond circumstance as well, right? So I think one of those that Stephen Chow ones that I really love is the one that he does. He learns kung fu.
Kung Fu Hustle.
No, not kung fu hustle. It's another one. Shit, I should know. He plays a delivery boy. With a young Christy Chung.
Oh,
Really good.
in the mid-90s one. One of it.
That I think is one of his best actually. Very underrated. Yeah.
My favorite is either Shaolin Soccer or Kung Fu Hustle.
I hear you. Those are definitely a lot more. To me, they're just a lot more refined, right?
More refined. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I definitely hot take. I prefer Shaolin Soccer way over Kung Fu Hustle.
Right.
Yeah. Kung Fu Hustle was creative, but Kung Fu Hustle, I felt like, wow, suddenly got these moments, like, if you notice from Shaolin Soccer onwards, he got more and more violent. Like, he got more liberal with cartoon violence
Right.
in his films. Like, Shaolin Soccer, you have, like, the goalkeeper get beat up in a soccer setting, but they're never, like, their lives are never at threat,
Yeah.
right? Then Kung Fu Hustle, you see decapitation, you know.
Right.
You see decapitation, and then in the mermaid, you see fucking mermaids getting stabbed and killed, you know. Like, there's a gratuitous scene of them just stabbing mermaids, you know. And
I haven't seen that film.
I
to
mean,
be honest.
it's whack, dude. It's so violent.
I always felt Stephen Chow, right, with those two films, Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle, right, he probably does the best live action animation.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you kind of think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a living cartoon, able to actualize in human form.
Yeah, I definitely see where it comes from, but I also think that, I mean, it's kind of that non sequitur kind of humor that you see in like Family Guy and even not as existentialist as Rick and Morty, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely see where you're coming.
Because you were speaking about Shaolin Soccer, that goalkeeper scene, right?
Yeah.
It's that one scene where he's trying to block all the shots and
Yeah.
they are just taking their turns to like hantam
Correct.
him, right?
Correct.
And that is such a like animation scene, but he's like, I'm going to go with it with
Yeah.
100% sincerity.
You know, and that's what I think maybe Singaporean filmmakers should think a little bit more about, to be honest. You know, never let reality get in the way of storytelling. Like, you know, you look at a film like RRR and it's like, you know, it's mad. It's an insane film. I loved it. I watched it twice or 3 times already. And, you know, it's so bombastic, so over the top. Like, look, these things you know never happen, but you just go with the flow because you are like just seeing the spectacle. And these are all very like heightened emotions, brohood, whatever. But at the end of the day, the pathos of the character is still very coherent. In all these films, the character is still very coherent, and the journey is still very coherent as well. And I think people are drawn towards journeys that they can try to understand for themselves, and of course, the different levels of literacy. Then you seek different kinds of films also.
Yeah. Shall we move on to a more serious topic, which is
Sure.
co-productions?
Okay. yes.
What a,
Now to
what
the-
a good segue.
To the
Yes.
business side.
Yes.
Yeah, I think maybe for audiences who don't know, like, what is a co-production? Yeah.
A co-production really is a few companies coming together to make a film. Now, I think when we say it in the Southeast Asian context, we're really referring to different Southeast Asian countries coming together to make a film. Right? That's the actual way people understand it. And so, for example, we work together with Philippines and Taiwan to do In My Mother's Skin, just as an example. And the reason why we do this is because there are different talents from each of our countries that would help to elevate the quality of the film. And also, I believe that there's great cross-pollination of skill sets and ideas in the process as well. The last benefit of a co-production really is to understand the storytelling and to hopefully try to make it a little bit more international than if it were to be just purely domestic. Because you are able to see certain nuances, gaps, which you may need to articulate with clarity. From a business perspective, I guess the biggest thing about co-productions would be you mitigate and split the risk when you have multiple partners coming in, and it's also easier to raise the money. And two, I think with governments incentivizing co-productions, there are some grants that help to allow smaller stories, more niche stories come to life. And I think this is proactiveness is really important, because it gives voices to the disenfranchised, those who would otherwise not be spoken for. And I think that is really the value of co-productions.
Yeah, and I mean, I think In My Mother's Skin is really a good case study. So maybe you could start off by just talking a bit about the film. Like, what is the film? Who is it directed by? How did you get to be involved in the production of this film?
So In My Mother's Skin is a horror film directed by Kenneth Lim Dagatan that's set in World War II. It deals with a young girl who is struggling to keep her family together when her father is gone, and in the process comes to trust a fairy with less than altruistic intentions. I can't believe I managed to say that.
Great log line.
Wow, dude, I can't
believe you used the word altruistic.
Yeah, I can't believe I was just trying to form the sentence.
Screenwriting students,
yeah.
that's how you write a log line.
That's a great elevator pitch.
Dude, it's my job to pitch, so it's actually a 3-country co-production. So we had Philippines, Taiwan, and Singapore. And at first it was Philippines, so that was led by Epic Media. So there's Bianca and Bradley, they are producers. And they knew I kind of was interested in genre. We were talking about it. They sent me a script. So we said, okay, just do it, And I remember reading the first version of the script. I saw that there was potential, but I also felt that it was a bit muddled. But I felt sometimes you just have to do, Don't think too much. If you keep thinking, you never do. So just do it. And so from there, we started to work on the script, the story. We pitched it, and we got some grant money from Singapore as well. And so from there, we brought on some Singaporeans to join the team. So we had a special effects makeup artist. We also had DP Russell Morton come aboard the film. And then we brought in Taiwan as well, because Taiwan could bring in a bit of financing, but the condition was that they had to do strictly post-production. Right, so that's when they had to do strictly post-production. So if you look at the film, it's very interesting. All the music is composed by a Taiwanese. The sound mix is done by a Taiwanese. Even the editor is Taiwanese as well. So it's really, we have migrated many different people across 3 different countries to make a film. And I think this is one of the first examples of a purely Southeast Asian finance indie film. Yeah, because most of the time you rely on European financing. Either you're purely commercial, but usually then you have a studio and you do it for a domestic market.
Was there any of a challenge trying to balance all these different sensibilities from different countries? Because you mentioned how the post was done in Taiwan, and did they have did they read the film in a different way, or they were aligned on the same page from the very start?
I mean, even when you work with people from the same country, same problem. You always still would have different interpretations of the work. I think what the difference would be is in culture and how you work and how you communicate. Because Taiwanese, I find them to be a little bit conflict averse. So you really need to tease out what they're really thinking and feeling. And I think anything to do with co-productions is really trust and also understanding and time, So I think, to be fair, all the producers we all got along really well, and we were very clear. And we always empowered Kenneth to make the final say, even though we would hound him when we strongly disagree.
Yeah, and I'm also curious, correct me if I'm wrong, right? But of late, there's been a huge wave in co-productions. And I think the main cause is Singapore Films Commission co-production grant. Could you talk a bit about that, and why was the grant set up, and what do you think it has achieved or is achieving? And yeah, maybe we can start there.
I wouldn't talk so much about why it was set up, because that I think is a government policy question, which I wouldn't speak on their behalf. But I would say that there are many benefits to it. I think it's allowed Singapore to be a lot more of a regional player. I think it sets the seeds for long-term relationships and growth, and is able to position us and our producers as sort of like, in my mind, a bit like mediators, packages for the region. And I think it's allowed a lot of our Singaporean crew to go out and to see more and to do more as well. So I feel that there will be very long-term benefits, and I think the important thing is to be patient and to be consistent. Why we are seeing a lot more co-productions is not just because of Singapore's co-production scheme. I think the festivals play a big role in fostering these relationships, and there's a generation of filmmakers who are a lot more closely knit than before. So if you look at people like Amanda Nauyu, Makbul, they both had award-winning films, right, in Venice and in Cannes Critics Week, respectively. And they are actually friends for many years. They traveled with their short films, and they got to know each other, and they're friends. And really, I think it's about this relationship, this sort of intellectual, cultural exchange, this sort of discourse that forges people to become better storytellers, to think about why it's important to tell a story. Because I watched this play recently called God is a Woman by Joel Tan. Really good play. And you know, there's one play which one line in a play I really agreed with, which is that sometimes art really don't need to make one. And I think about it, also very true, you know. And I think it's, you know, the more you ask yourself the question, then you are able to make more considered decisions. And I think what you are seeing is going to be, now there are a lot, and there's going to be a distillation of these decisions in terms of what sort of art can be made, why they should be made, and it will require different types of convictions as well.
So for whether it's a producer or director, how should they think about co-productions? When is it appropriate to have a co-production, and when is it not?
I think it depends on what sort of film you're trying to make, and what is your goal in making the film as well, and what is your timeline. I think there's no one size fits all. So it's really a decision matrix, so to speak. So I'll say these are the factors. So I will just elaborate very quickly about this. So for example, if you're aiming for purely domestic film with domestic market, and you want to make it quickly then you can't do a co-production because you have to wait. You have to wait for grant schemes. You have to work with different timelines. You have to be more patient with the cultural exchanges, things like that as well. Yeah.
So let's say you have time. Let's say time is not a factor.
Yeah. So other considerations will be really language, distribution, who is your target audience, and also like financials also . You know, like the second I do a co-production in another country, I need to give them maybe percentages, right? Do I want to give away these percentages? Do I get a better deal by doing it complete by myself? What is the budget? If I work with another country, what are they going to bring to the table that I want? You know, they must have something that I can work with, right? Other than just purely money as well. Because you're also going to pay a producer's fee as well, right? So then on top of that, also you think about, even if they're able to raise money, like, you know, whenever you work with France, those European countries, obviously they get paid a lot more for us, even though we do the same amount of work, right? Sure, because of their education and their exposure, the quality of work is better in general. Not in all cases, but in general. And the benefit of that really is that your work also gets a certain veneer, a polish that you won't otherwise get, but you're also paying them a lot more. So are you going to give up more percentages of your film to these European filmmakers for that degree of polish? Is it worth it? I think these are all considerations if time isn't a factor.
Right. So to use in your mother skin as an example, who would you say is the primary target market?
I think the target market is really horror fans. I think specifically horror fans who appreciate a bit more of an intellectual kind of film, because I think it trades more in atmosphere and allegory rather than convention. So I don't think it serves every audience, but I don't think films should aim to serve every audience.
Would you say it's horror fans from the Philippines or from other countries also?
I think mainly from other countries, you know. I think Philippines, they watch this, they'll find it, most of them may find it a bit slow. To be fair, what's interesting is that I showed the film to my helper and all her friends from Philippines. We had a screening party, you know. And, you know, I wouldn't say that they're very film literate. They don't watch a lot of films. They watch TV series, sure, Korean drama, sure. But when they watched the film, they were so excited when they saw the Aswang on screen. Like, to see their folklore represented, they're very excited. Then when they saw the fairy, the Diwata represented on the screen, they also recognized it, and the Catholic imagery. So it's interesting to see how they responded to it, because the language also is slightly different and the appreciation is slightly different. And of course, then from maybe a different audience, then they read it a bit differently in terms of like it being an allegory for colonialist culture. So I think different people get different things from the film, and I think good films tend to do that. You know, you get different things, different interpretations from it as well. I'm not saying In My Mother's Skin is a good film, but I'm just sharing what I think is a value.
But I think that's interesting, because I mean, at the start of the podcast, we mentioned I have some opinions about the film. But now, you know, you say that your helper and friends, they have such a strong reaction to the folklore represented. And I think also a lot of the Western audiences, they resonated with it. They are obviously seeing a different thing. So I think that itself is kind of a success of, you know, from the film.
I think sometimes filmmaking, we're all hopeful because we want to see something big and different.
Yep.
And I think as producers, we always, especially film producers, we really try to make something big and different. That's the elevator pitch. If you don't think it's going to be big and different, then why do you even pitch it, right? So, but I think also it has to be a little bit like you have to chip away at it, and sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't. And the important thing is to keep doing it and to be considerate every time you do it as well, which is the hardest part because it can be very depressing.
Speaking of big and different, do you think Singapore films can always be big and different? If not, what are some ways they can navigate around to always make the stories big and different?
I guess also the first question to answer is, what is the goal of being big and different? The goal is to really have some sort of cultural resonance in society, right? Some sort of like reflection, right? And like I always think of The Office and how it's so popular in America when they adapted it and made it more culturally specific. So when I think about Singaporean cinema, how it can be big and different is to that end, about being culturally relevant and thing. And I think it's not about having special effects. It's not about doing genre. It's not about doing something bigger in terms of budget, in terms of scale, but in terms of craft and storytelling, that needs to be a little bit more ambitious in how we think the audience can respond and will respond. So I'm not saying be complex or convoluted, but I also don't think that we need to rely on convention to secure an audience. And that's why I think structurally, in terms of how we position the film, how we arrange the content of the film, that can be a lot more adventurous to be so-called big and different. And how we think about how we tell these beats and stories can be big and different, because to be honest, when I watch a lot of films, even the fundamental beats are really missing. We can't tell a simple story well, you know. And I think it's really about how do you rearrange a simple story that we hear day to day and make it interesting, engaging, you know. I think it's really just doing that, you know. So maybe in order to think bigger and different, we need to think even smaller, right? To use fewer things and to make it work harder for us as storytellers.
Get the basics right.
I always say that.
What's the last Singapore film that made you feel that there's those things that you just mentioned?
I mean, I would say that I would prefer to say that I appreciate all Singaporean films for their merit and their value they bring to the table lah. If it's the last film that I walk,
Feature, short film, anything.
yeah. Okay, I mean the short. I will go to a short then. I think okay. What I did really like your shot, John. This is not because you are the podcast host.
Thank you.
You know I've told you this many
Yep,
times.
yep.
I did think that was very unabashedly Singaporean and very honest and very sincere. Never have I seen a short film spend 1 minute talking about McSpicy and how it makes you shit.
Sorry, for the benefit of the audience, can you talk a bit about John's short film and
Of course.
give some, backstory?
Yeah, so maybe he will post it on YouTube or somewhere. Maybe not YouTube. That sounds so bad. But
Maybe.
but it's a short film called Sci-Fi Haiku, and it follows a man who's looking to do art, and the so-called inspiration is really from sci-fi, and it's like, can an everyday person make art when he's not knowing how to make art? Like, what is art? And there's a very metatextual, very reflective question there that is couched in a very slice of life comedy, which I really like in the film. So that I really liked. And the other film that I really liked of late is Mark Troy and Lee Xuan's Men Trembles.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was a breath of fresh air in its ambition, in its storytelling. Very obtuse, but also very resonant. And I find that both films, why I particularly like them is because I really understood the characters being a Singaporean, right? Whether I know a story or not, it's actually important, but secondary when it comes to shot in different medium. And I think sometimes it's so sad for me that when I watch a film, even to today, we are still relying on old stereotypes to tell new stories. It's like, bro, keep it the times, Where's our crypto bro on screen,
Could you just double click on that, like elaborate more on that?
Which one? The
Old stereotypes in
New
our new films.
Well, I mean, I think we still rely on certain stereotypes when it comes to Singaporean films, like that. We have government people or civil servants being portrayed uptight, bureaucratic. We have young people seeing as trying to change the world, idealistic, angsty, like the father who carries the weight of the world on his shoulders and is unable to communicate. I mean, yeah, sure, we recognize some of these people in day-to-day lives, but I don't think we're really adding to the conversation in terms of our observations about these characters. And
I think they've been done so many times to the point where they're almost like Singaporean archetypes, like our cinematic archetypes.
And I think nothing wrong with archetypes per se, but it's like, look, there is definitely room for new observations and reflections as well, right? If I am that Singaporean man who has seen myself reflected like this all these years, do I not want to watch something, or do I not be drawn to something that tells me something new about myself? A new observation about myself, a new feeling about myself as well, and I don't think we are doing that enough because we are focusing so much on like trying to reflect who we are, where we are. I mean, look, all filmmakers, all kinds of stories, let's put it this way, but I think for me, so much of filmmaking is not just about telling a story, but it's also really creating a visual audio kind of archive, a repository in terms of a certain feeling of during a certain moment in time. And my fear is that, in not trying to listen and speaking, we have not actually done that very well. I've not seen it. I've seen so few films capture a very Gen Z voice and energy as well. I think the last one I saw was that captured that like really Gen Z energy. I felt was this film called Girls, Girls, Girls. Quite interesting short film. I mean, you can tell it's student work, but what I really appreciate about it is this very raw kind of like energy, a bit angsty, and the track is sung by the director as well, composed and sung by the director. It's like, and this to me is like so much of what filmmaking we should be championing.
So can you, I think also for the benefit of the audience and for me also, Girls, Girls, Girls.
I don't think you will be able to
It's
see
a Neon Poly
Neon Poly
film, right?
film,
It won awards at National Youth Film Awards.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that they are there are things in it that I thought worked very well to that captures the tone of a Gen Z audience, and I think we should be seeing more of these honest voices before like people try to dilute them or try to give them bad advice. Actually, I think that's the one thing as a director, writer, producer. Most important thing is take everybody's feedback, be very selective which ones you execute. Be very selective. Yeah.
I think what's interesting is a lot of the Singapore films you just mentioned are films, right? But I find a lot of great work has been done on like YouTube web series.
Oh, interesting. Which ones would that
Right.
be?
Like for example, Tai Hong did 2 web series, right?
Yeah.
Average Guys and what was the other
Neighborhood
one?
Watch.
Yeah. And also Annette Lee.
Mm.
I think recently she had this like it centers around this billionaire family.
Yes.
Gilbert
Yeah.
Chan in it.
Yeah.
Gilbert Chan and Benjamin King, right?
Yeah, I think those are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a different opinion. I think it's really, I think it's good that they are being made. I think it's good that they're being made. But I also think that they are very loud caricatures of our audiences, which is not a bad thing. I think I would say I enjoyed Chai Hong's Average Guys, I think, as well. That was definitely funny lah. But I gotta put this on record lah. I don't really get Annette Lee's comedy, man. I think it's
Room for improvement.
yeah. I feel like I honestly feel like frustrated lah. I think that they're actually very good comedic storytellers out there that deserve more attention than Annette Lee, and I think if they just listen to the audience a little bit more and just do instead of thinking about doing, we would be in a different landscape lah.
Okay, now I need you to elaborate on what you just said. Like, who do you think, like whoever you were like alluding to, if you can name names or name films.
Yeah, I wouldn't name films lah, right? No point in that. I think people are trying, to be fair. I think they're still fairly young, most of them. So I don't want to add pressure. I just say like they got to go through their own journey lah, you know. And some filmmakers mature at different paces. So I think also, to be fair, it's like no point saying who they are lah.
No, because it feels like, I mean, I didn't ask the question in like a malicious way, right?
Oh,
because
of course not.
it's obviously you like them as filmmakers,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you see potential in them.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like, in terms of improvements that you are thinking about, like, what are they?
In terms of improvements, is really just to keep making more. I think if you really force yourself to just keep making thoughtfully and with a very clear goal in mind, you will definitely get better. You definitely get better. The more you spend your time at something, you're going to get better at it. And I think now there are communities and everything, and I think Singapore, the big okay, I mean, to maybe one reaction, and maybe why my reaction is so averse a little bit to Chai Hong's and these works, I don't think they're the solution. I firmly don't think they're the solution to growing our audience in Singapore, because they speak to English speakers who are of a certain socioeconomic class that do not represent the masses, right? They represent maybe a more slightly educated, a more people who consume a little bit more than the average person, right? That is completely different target audience, and those works also I believe will not travel to other countries as well.
Right. Interesting. So how would you characterize the Singapore masses?
There is no way to characterize the Singapore masses because it's non-homogeneous. We do not have we do not have a great mass of Singaporeans who speak one language, not like Thailand, not like Korea, you know, and that's why you have very thriving domestic markets. Indonesia, Philippines, all have stronger domestic markets because they have a majority language. Obviously, this is an interesting challenge lah. And just as Singapore, they always say it's the miracle that never happened, the film industry has to figure out this challenge in its own way. And I think what's really interesting is that you're seeing many different producers, many different filmmakers. Everybody's aware of the problem, and everybody's trying to find their own way of answering that question with their own sense of integrity. I think that's what everybody's really trying to answer that question with integrity and to refine this like way of the sword, you know, so-called. Yeah.
how would you answer this question with integrity if right now you are going to embark on this next project?
I mean, for me, I'm very pragmatic lah. So one, don't do English language. Don't do English language works, because I think that is what we hear, what we listen, what we sound on a day-to-day basis. But it's still not majority. It's still not majority thing. I think it can have multiple languages. I think that's interesting. I feel that we need to do something that's topical, something that people really connect with. And you look at it, Jack does that so well, right? Rather than focus on like mother son, all these issues and things like that. I feel like Jack tackles the bigger issues well, which is money, army, what else? Education system. These are things that people want to talk about. And I think that if we listen and we try to make more films along those ways, you will grow an audience, whether it's for better or worse. And then if they start watching you, then you have the chance, you earn their trust, right? It's like, the thing is that like, it's kind of like a dating game, right? All directors are like eligible bachelors or bachelorettes. And you're going out there and your audience are people you're trying to court, you're trying to woo. And sometimes, you're just like, I'm just myself, let me just be myself. And some people like you for who you are, some people you don't. And most people do not always like you for who you are, for everything you are, right? Because you are trying to appease not just one person, but a larger critical mass. Very different from theatre. Theatre, you only try to put like 1,000 people into a hall, right? But for film, you need to put in at least 10,000 plus over people, at least, into a hall. So your stakes are different, your mindset needs to be very different, and what you need to put out there needs to be very different as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to take a huge step back and look at Southeast Asian cinema. So before we started the recording, you were about to say something about the Southeast Asian film industry.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I was going to say, I can't remember. I can't remember what I was going to say. But I mean, I'll start off with what I think is extremely positive. I think that there's definitely a belief that's permeating. I think Southeast Asian films are punching above their weight internationally. So festival awards are one thing, but I think also resonance with their domestic audience also it's working. Resonance with international audiences is working. I mean, never ago, you wouldn't think like 20 years ago that Southeast Asian would be known for action and horror, right? And if you think about it, these sort of ideological expeditions into the West use this Trojan horse of genre to get in, right? So I think we should really, we are not limited to it, but I think we should think about what is, I think there is a thinking that is growing in terms of how to reach a different audience that is being adopted. Now, second thing I think, which is separate from this Southeast Asian equation, is that it's important to be a trendsetter, not a trend follower. Yeah. So actually, now I think about it, I'm going to stop doing horror for a while. I think
can
they're done there already.
Can you elaborate more on the first point you made? You said there is a growing thinking about how to make this Southeast Asian cinema work. Something along those lines.
Trojan horse bit. Was it that? What's that? My second point.
So, okay, maybe just to ask another question. Why are Southeast Asian cinema, as of late, more successful? Yeah. And I think, I don't know if it's helpful to split the Southeast Asian art house independent cinema and Southeast Asian commercial cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe we can start there.
I think I guess it's important to kind of distinguish, because they have very different types of success, right?
Yeah.
Like you have films like Police Evo 3 that did very well in Malaysia, for example, which is very different from Amanda Yu's Tiger Stripes. I think the producers are a lot more savvy, the filmmakers are a lot more well-read, a lot more confident. And so I think they are also a lot more market savvy. Just as how influencers manage a brand, I think producers also know the need to manage their audience while being honest with themselves. And that's very tricky with so many different. It's because it's such a collaborative process. So I think there is, you talk to people, there is a growing understanding that we need to find ways to reach audiences. And, if genre is an easy sell to get them to at least try it out, try it. But obviously, you can't go too far with it also. If not, you end up like, when they marketed that Chinese film as a romantic film, then
Oh, I know Pican's film.
Pican's film.
Long Day's Journey into Night.
Oh, I mean, poor thing lah, right? You
Pican
can't set up.
become Tio Gan.
Yeah. Pican. Hey, bro, you have been keeping that joke card. It's well worth it. It's a great joke card to use. But only for Singaporean audiences. That's why comedy is so limited, sadly. But yeah, I think people are trying different things, in different countries. And I think also the great thing is that OTT players like Netflix, Amazon, a lot of them have the thinking that Southeast Asian is the way to grow their subscriber base. So they are putting a lot of money into commissioning originals in the region as well. So you do have a sort of like financial lifeline for a lot of filmmakers. And I think hopefully they also maintain some degree of integrity, and to marry that with the learnings from their experience working with OTT players in terms of audience growth, reception, curation. And I think that, again, it goes back to my point that listen to everybody, but be very careful with the advice you choose to take.
Yeah. How about on the more commercial side? I think when I look at Southeast Asian cinema, just to name specific countries, right? Obviously, there is Thailand, there is Vietnam, there is Singapore, Malaysia. I think, would you agree that outside of these 4 countries, the other territories are not so prominent yet?
I don't think so. I think Philippines is doing very well.
Obviously, Philippines. So I think like Brunei, Myanmar.
Yeah.
What other Southeast Asian countries are there?
Laos.
Timor-Leste, is that considered?
East Timor, Laos.
Yeah.
I mean, Laos, Cambodia, I think they have filmmakers that are making waves, right?
I think more on the independent art house side, right?
Yeah, I know. Actually, commercial films also, Cambodia also you do have. But it's just that we're not aware because you're not there.
Yeah.
Laos, I don't know. Laos, I'm not so aware. I guess the other territories, Myanmar, you can't say anything because of the
military conflict.
The rule, the government. And then for East Timor, too small, I guess. Brunei also too small. I mean, they're trying. They made an action film there a few years ago, right? Some taekwondo action film.
Yeah. And actually, John and I talk a lot about which country in Southeast Asia's cinema will
become the leading
one. And
leading voice.
I think we both kind of agree, like Thai cinema has the greatest potential.
I disagree with that.
Oh, okay.
Strongly disagree.
John, maybe you want to start with saying why do we agree on Thai?
I think we spoke about this topic, right? I was watching this interview with Johnny To, and then he was talking about they were asking him, what do you think about the death of like Hong Kong cinema? And he said that, Hong Kong cinema never dies. It's just that the time kind of it's over, it's just not in its booming stage. Yeah. So now Korea is rising. Now it's Korea's time. But it might come a time, it becomes much more still. Yeah. Who knows, the next one might be. And then he just suddenly said, Indonesia is doing really well now. Yeah, Indonesia might be the next voice. And then I was like, that's interesting. I never thought of it. Even though I know that
I think it's true.
They always have a strong thing going on. So we were talking about it, and we were like, Thailand might be it because it's just so visually interesting. Yeah, Singapore, even our own filmmakers, it's like still. Yeah. But Thailand has that international city look that.
And I think not just that. I think it was also because if you look at outside of cinema, in their just a general pop culture. Sure. There are certain things that are just uniquely Thai. Yeah. Like the idea, like B love or boy love.
Boy love.
I don't think that's a very.
It's not a Thai thing.
I know it's a Korean thing, right? But somehow it has really taken root.
It's taken root because it's a marketing thing. it's a marketing thing, and you can film the content there because they are more agreeable to it.
Liberal.
So if let's say would Singapore make boys love stuff, of course got audience to serve, make because someone will commission it, right?
Yeah.
So the only reason why we don't do that is because can't do that.
Yeah.
So Thailand can, Taiwan also, Korea, and I know got a bit. Actually, and Japan, of course, the OGs right?
Yeah, but the question is why in
Boys Over
Thailand
Flowers,
and not in like Philippines or
I
I guess why not?
I think Philippines also okay. I mean, for what it's worth, I think the country the biggest one will be Indonesia as well.
Okay, maybe
I firmly believe that.
speak more about that.
I think if you look at Indonesia has the biggest, has a huge population, huge screens. The audience is still growing, and the cinemas are still growing in Indonesia as well. There's a big cinema going culture. There's a big star culture as well. You have great diversity and types of filmmakers as well. You have great synergy between all the producers and not dominated by one major studio. I think Thailand is mainly GDH, right? So I think it has all the ingredients to become even stronger. It's not actually as mature as Thailand. Thailand is actually quite expensive, right? And also the next thing is incentives. It's actually easier to co-produce with Indonesia actually.
How so?
I mean, they're announcing a matching fund down the road, and there'll be government incentives down the road. And if you look at the crew and the culture, it's like they're really passionate. You know, when I worked in Indonesia and Buffalo Boys, everybody is an assistant. Even the assistant editor is an assistant to cook him Indomie, right? But you know, it feels very superfluous to have like 100 people on set to do something simple, right? And I was very frustrated by it. And you know, I keep talking about cutting people and things like that, but then I met so much resistance. And I think it's a good thing for them, because what you have had in a very short amount of time is people being escalated and pushed into roles that they're not normally doing, and learning under mentorship in more junior positions. Their infrastructure is great. Singapore, we are dead because crew is charging higher. We don't have as much exposure. It's not any slight to them. Cost of living here is high, but it's just not fertile ground for it to do well, right? And of course, transfer of knowledge is weak. And then, of course, it becomes a pyramid because jobs are being outsourced because the cost of production here is so high. So it's kind of like a bit of economics, I guess. Thailand, when I work in Indonesia, is like, dude, last time the person was art assistant, now a production manager on a $2 million film. I mean, Singapore, do we even have a $2 million film work on or not? Right? So you can't compare. They're going to overtake. They have already overtaken Singapore. And Thailand is very mature, and the crew is very good, very professional, fantastic. I mean, they're really fantastic. But like, yeah, I mean, they are not that affordable. You know, it's actually not that affordable to shoot in Thailand. You know, the cost of shooting in Thailand is probably comparable to shooting in a bit cheaper than shooting in Singapore, maybe. Yeah.
How about Vietnam?
Vietnam is exciting, they're burgeoning, but obviously government is a big challenge there, like a communist government. So you're going to meet some resistance, but I think they have a very strong domestic market as well.
Yes.
So they have a young audience that likes to go to the cinema, that's also becoming more affluent. So you will see that domestic market rise, definitely. But in terms of being regional players or exporting the work, no. Because they don't know how to, if I ask you to name me an Indonesian film that you watch that's commercial, you know lah. Right?
Oh, the action one.
The raid lah.
Yeah, the raid.
The raid lah, right?
Yeah.
If I ask you to name me a Thai commercial film, can you name one?
Can.
Bad Genius.
Bad Genius.
No, Thai can, sorry. Vietnam.
Vietnam really cannot.
Yeah, can. I know. Actually, Roma, quite recent.
That's not commercial. Didn't do well domestically. I think not even.
It did very well.
Domestically
Yes, I
in
think
Vietnam.
so. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I know the producer. It did well.
Okay. I'm surprised to hear that. That, and I question what is doing well. So, like in terms of dollars and cents, because I know that for example, I'm genuinely curious. I genuinely don't know, because I know that, for example, there's this like hot pot movie that they shot in Vietnam. I think made for 2 million that grossed like 8 to 10 USD. And the other film which I was going to say is like, if you think about Rom, it's not made for a commercial audience also lah.
Yeah, I agree.
To be fair lah.
Yeah.
The one that's made for commercial audience that I think did okay was Fury with Veronica No.
Yeah.
And then they did Fury 2 that didn't do well. But yeah, look, I think it's tough, right? But they do have some like willpower behind it. So Vietnam, yeah, you may see more interesting stuff come from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Indonesia, they have the right mix lah, and also Indonesia, they almost don't speak good English.
Yeah. I think what's interesting that's happening in Vietnam is a lot of the big Korean conglomerates have moved there, set up base there for very long.
Years ago, like 2012, 2011.
Yeah, and they built cinemas, and they are turning their Korean IPs and they are localizing it and making Vietnamese language versions of their IP.
Oh, this was so long ago, right?
Right.
This
yeah.
was ages ago.
Yeah.
And I think there was a backlash to that, right? The backlash being, I think the local domestic industry came together, so they had the willpower to come together and say like, we need you to give back to the industry, and that's when you had a lot of funding go into Vietnamese short films. So many of them have gone on to do very well. I think Phan Thien's, the director who won Camera d'Or for Inside the Yellow Cocoon, did a film, short film called Stay Ready Be Awake that won, and that got the prize in Director's Fortnight. So I think there's genuinely a good outcome there lah, a good outcome there. But I don't know. My feeling is that I would love to work with more Vietnamese. Don't get me wrong. And I think when I attended I attended one of their autumn meeting sessions and stuff, and there were some really good ideas there. But I think it will still be a while. Yeah. I think Indonesia is much faster. Yeah.
How about a bit closer to home, Malaysia?
Great domestic industry, but maybe too domestic because they're not looking at making films that also have a chance to reach abroad. I mean, that's a challenge. Like, you want to hit a domestic market, great, but can you hit domestic and international? That's a different ball game. And I think this is another question that people are looking to resolve lah.
So, John, Quickfire Round.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is our first episode.
Okay, very honored.
We want to do a thing where we rip off from many podcasts where they do a quick fire round at the end.
This is a slow setup for a quick fire round.
Yeah, so deliberately enter the quick fire round. So it's this or this kind of question. So first one, Kung Fu Hustle or Shaolin Soccer?
Shaolin Soccer, hands down.
Why?
Easy. Well, I think Shaolin Soccer felt a bit more pure and sincere. I felt Kung Fu Hustle maybe a bit overproduced. Like, that's when the effects and everything I felt became a bit too digital looking, and I don't know, and also the random bouts of violence just didn't sit well tonally for me. I know what he's trying to do, but reality is very hard and these people keep it coming. But Shaolin Soccer felt a lot more pure lah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. On the topic of Southeast Asian genre,
Yeah.
Tony Jaa or Iko Uwais?
Tony Jaa, hands down. Tony Jaa. I mean, dude, Tom Yam Goong, man, enough said.
Okay.
Right. I mean, Echo has done some cool stuff, but Tony Jaa left to become a monk and created his own like martial arts, right, based on like how he moves with elephants or something. So he takes the cake.
Actually, I agree. I think Tom Yam Goong really changed the game.
Yeah,
It really made everyone wake up.
Dude, I mean, these Thais really like. I mean, that's why. Yeah. I felt they have reached a peak a while back because they're not still churning out the same degree of stuff lah. I mean, here and there, of course, still good, but yeah.
Okay, cool. Next one, Mee Pok Man or 12 Stories?
12 Stories. Yeah, I think 12 Stories is the more evergreen story of the two.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you watch Mee Pok Man as
kind of
piece of history.
tough
lah.
watch lah.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of merits to it. But I think 12 Stories is the first template for the HDB story. Really.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
If you really think about it, we are still following it to the day in terms of structure and archetype, right? So it has to be 12 Stories.
12 stories and
With Jack Neo with his buck teeth, I mean,
it's a good double bill with the graphic novel Gone Case.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Simpsons or Rick or Morty?
Ooh, Simpsons lah. I mean, look, I really love Rick and Morty as well. But Simpsons the OG, man. You know, yeah. Springfield.
Yeah.
And they got movie also. They already have one movie.
the movie is actually
Rick and Morty
one
can't say
version.
shit, man.
Yeah.
Don't have movies too. They're not in the equation. Yeah.
Okay, last one. In comedy, because you really like comedy, slapstick or dark comedy?
Why not both?
If you got to choose one.
This one is tough.
This is tough, right?
This one is particularly tough. I mean, I feel like it's like asking redheads or brunettes. Dark comedy.
Dark comedy,
Dark
okay.
comedy maybe.
Yeah, what is it about dark comedy that's slightly...
I mean, only because you forced me to make a decision. But yeah, I don't know. I guess dark comedy is a little bit more niche to champion the underdog so that more people check it out. And I don't think we're making very good slapstick nowadays. I can't think of the top of my head a good slapstick in the past 5 years, 10 years.
Actually, what I'm more curious about is why you picked dark comedy over slapstick, but the fact that you had such a long pause. So what is it about slapstick that you love?
I mean, it's so easy to dismiss slapstick, right?
Yeah, precisely.
But I really like it, and I think there's a long history of it, and it even goes back to the history of like cinema, right? With like the first performers would be these vaudeville acts that you usually travel in a traveling circus, and they would now come and perform slapstick on screen for a bigger audience, and I think you laugh, you may find it a bit silly, but it's kind of, you're laughing at the poetic ironies of life in a way. Like when you step on a rake and it hits you on the head, it's funny because it's like, yes, it happened and it looks a bit stupid, but it's also like, this is what life can be and how cruel it can be, and you kind of take it on the chin. I think slapstick is a way of like helping people to rationalize the injustices of life.
Wow. I didn't expect such a deep answer. And why do you think a lot of...
I think about comedy a lot.
Why do you think a lot of... I don't know if art house is the right word, but a lot of like directors, why do they look down on slapstick?
Because everybody can participate in slapstick. Maybe the barriers of entry are easier. So it's but look, there's good commercial, there's bad commercial, there's good art house, there's bad art house, there's good slapstick, there's bad slapstick. Simple as that.
Not a lot of people can do it well.
Yeah, and I think also it's due for some sort of reinvention. I mean, it's just as simple as like you watch the Stephen Chow films where Stephen Chow's in it versus he's not in it. Big difference, right? So a lot of it boils down to the performer, and I think people look down on it because it's seen as crass lah. But why are we so high-minded about like storytelling and entertainment all the time? It's like, you like it, just watch. I don't like it, don't watch. Nobody's telling you not to watch it. What? So I don't really get it lah. But I also do think that sometimes certain films or certain stories can also be maybe an oversimplification of an issue, and I think that's where that becomes problematic lah. So yeah, good and bad slapstick, I guess.
Great. So that's the end of our Crossfire session.
Yeah, and with that, thank you, JX, for being on the first episode
Thank
of
you.
the Chapalang podcast.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you.
Yeah, I need a
Okay.
trophy. You got to give me a trophy for being the first guest on this Chapalang. I know that you had some star awards, John. So I think I deserve a trophy.
In my parents' house.
Okay, okay. I will take one lah. I think one.
Probably you can just give it to you and
Yeah.
as memorabilia.
I would take it. I'm quite shameless like that.
Use it in your short film.
I would totally do it. Totally.
Yeah.
And with that, see you on the next episode.